All right, this next set of notes is for the muscular system, so I have another post-it note. I've got muscular system on top, so that I can just turn straight to it if I want muscular system information. Function of the muscular system is to allow movement through contraction and relaxation of muscle fibers. The function of the muscular system is to allow movement through contraction and relaxation of muscle fibers. So we talked about cellular organization. We know that cells themselves contain organelles. Those organelles are made up of molecules, molecules made up of atoms. Basic building block, however, is the cell. Same types of cells create tissue. Different types of tissue work together to make an organ. Different organs create the organ system. For the muscular system, muscle organ system cell, muscular cell, is called a myocyte. So the cell would be a myocyte. An example of a type of tissue would be skeletal muscle. That's one example. Organ would be the bicep. That's one muscle. And the organ system that it's involved in is the muscular system. An EMG is an electromyography. This measures electrical activity associated with muscle contraction. EMG stands for electromyography. It measures the electrical activity associated with the muscle contractions. Some terms that are important. First of all, tendon. A tendon is a connective tissue that attaches muscle to bone. Tendons attach muscle to bone. Ligaments attach bone to bone. Ligaments attach bone to bone. Difference between a sprain, a strain, and a tear. So a sprain is an injury or an overstretched ligament. A sprain is an injury or an overstretched ligament. A strain is an injury that's an overstretched muscle or tendon. Strain is an injury from an overstretched muscle or tendon. And a tear is an injury where we have a torn ligament or tendon, or you could have a torn muscle. So tear, we have torn ligament or tendon or muscle. All right, on the next page here, so I've got this right-hand side page. It's not quite divided half and half. Top half is a little bit shorter than the bottom half, but the top half has the different types of muscles. So one type of muscle is voluntary muscle. Voluntary muscle is muscle that we have voluntary control over the movement of those muscles. So voluntary muscle, we have voluntary control over the movement of those types of muscles. Example is skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is voluntary, and one specific example of voluntary muscle is the biceps. So you can voluntarily decide whether or not to move that particular muscle. Involuntary muscle, we have no conscious control over this type of muscle, or limited. No conscious control over this type of muscle, or a very limited amount of control. So you can hold your breath for a little while, but eventually you're not going to be able to keep holding it. Your body's going to take control and make you start breathing again, even if it's making you pass out so you can start breathing again. Cardiac muscle and smooth muscle are both muscle types that are involuntary muscle. Cardiac muscle and smooth muscle are both involuntary muscle types. And so some examples of organs that are made of involuntary muscle: the heart, we don't control that. Intestines, we can't control the digestive process through them. Our diaphragm, that's what we need in order to breathe. We don't have a whole lot of control over it. It's very limited. All right, those are types of muscle. And so now we're going to look at the muscles themselves, whether they are striated, cardiac, or smooth. Right, okay. Striated muscle. Striated muscle is muscle that has stripes. So muscle is striated, it has stripes. The striations are created by actin and myosin fibers arranged in units called sarcomeres. So striated muscle is muscle that is striated. It has stripes, that kind of pattern, that kind of look to it. And so striations are created by actin and myosin fibers arranged in units called sarcomeres. Cardiac muscle. Oh, wait. No, that's part of striated. Sorry. This is part of striated muscle. I need a line in between there. So striated muscle it's voluntary, so it is the movement of our body and our skeleton. Put a line in between there to separate those out. That's a horrible line, but you get the idea. All right, cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is striated, but it is involuntary. So cardiac muscle has those stripes, it has those striations, but it is involuntary. The striated muscle itself is voluntary because it's skeletal muscle. Cardiac muscle, even though it's striated, it's involuntary. Cardiac muscle, it's pumping blood through the cardiovascular system. Cardiac means specifically the heart. Please put a little squiggly line in between that. There we go. All right, smooth muscle. Smooth muscle has actin and myosin fibers, but the fibers are not arranged in the sarcomeres, so they don't have those striations. The muscle is arranged in layered sheets, and it contracts in waves. So smooth muscle has the actin and myosin fibers, but the fibers are not arranged in sarcomeres. The muscle is arranged in layered sheets, and it contracts in waves. Smooth muscle aids in blood flow and digestion. Smooth muscle aids in blood flow and digestion. Okay, so then I left this side blank, and this side has our diagrams on it. So at the top is the makeup of a muscle diagram. Okay, so starting on the very inside, this is a myofibril. Myofibrils are packed in a structure, and it has sarcoplasmic reticulum within that area. So sarcoplasmic reticulum is very similar to endoplasmic reticulum. It's specific for a muscle. So this endoplasmic reticulum in cells is kind of like the highway. It's transporting materials around the cell. And so sarcoplasmic reticulum is transporting materials around within the muscle cell. Sarcoplasmic reticulum, specific type of endoplasmic reticulum for the muscle cell. And generally speaking, we're talking about it's moving around calcium in there because we need that to be handy. Endomysium, muscle fiber, paramecium, epimecium, fascicle, blood vessel / nerve, bone, tendon, and muscle. All right, so we looked at the muscle fiber, sarcoplasmic reticulum, myofibril on the inside. So the endomysium is the thin layer around that muscle fiber. So it's kind of like a covering. The paramecium is the covering around several of these muscle fibers. A fascicle is a structure that has several muscle fibers surrounded by the paramecium. So this is a fascicle, this is a fascicle, 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 fascicle. So it's kind of like a bundle of muscle fibers. So all of these fascicles, all of these bundles of muscle fibers, they have an epimecium layer around it. Within that structure, within that muscle structure, we've got the fascicles, but we also have blood vessels and nerves that run through there because we need to supply it with nutrients, and we need a nerve cell to tell it whether or not to contract. Tendon connects muscle to bone, and then this is our bone right there. All right, so underneath, myofibril can be thought of as threads that the muscle fibers are composed of. So myofibrils are the threads that the muscle fibers are composed of. endomysium. Endomysium is the membrane around each muscle fiber. Endomysium is the membrane around each muscle fiber. And so I have my little pronunciation guide right here. And so I don't know if that's confusing to you or not, but this is my pronunciation guide. This is how it's spelled. So that's just helping me pronounce that term. So endomysium is the membrane around each muscle fiber. The endomysium is the membrane around each muscle fiber. Fascicle is a bundle of muscle fibers. Fascicle is a bundle of those muscle fibers. Paramecium is the membrane around each fascicle. The paramecium is the membrane around each fascicle. And the epimecium tough outer membrane around a group of fascicles to form a skeletal muscle. The fascicle ends past the muscle fibers and comes together to form the tendon that attaches muscle to bone. So here is my epimecium, and it is around the outside of that muscle, but it comes together. It comes together past where the muscle fibers are at. So technically, this tendon is still composed of that epimecium, and it connects it to the bone. So the epimecium is a tough outer membrane around a group of fascicles, and it forms, okay, I gotta read that again. Tough outer membrane around a group of fascicles to form a skeletal muscle. So it ends past those muscle fibers and comes together to form a tendon, and tendons attach muscle to bone. That's epimecium. All right, sarcoplasmic reticulum. I mentioned the fact that this is like endoplasmic reticulum, that's ER, but it stores calcium. So sarcoplasmic reticulum is a transport membrane. It's like endoplasmic reticulum in a cell, but sarcoplasmic reticulum is specific for muscles, and it stores calcium. Okay, then underneath we have our microscopic images. So these should go down here. Here's our microscopic muscle images. So we have our striations. This is a muscle fiber right here, connective tissue holding it together, and you should have a color picture, so it's probably going to look a little bit better. Nucleus, lots of nuclei in muscle cells. And to give you a little bit of histology difference in the different types of muscle tissue and how it looks, like I said, in terms of histology. So all of these would be the same magnification, 400x. This is smooth muscle, this is skeletal muscle, and this is cardiac muscle. So there's a definite difference between smooth and skeletal and cardiac. But they do still have those actin and myosin fibers. It's just in sheets rather than in striations.